classmates at a liberal arts college, Coe College in Cedar Rapids, graduated together, majored in math. So one went into teaching high school, I went off, got a PhD and ended up at college. So yeah, I left my career teaching as a professor at Simpson College because I wanted to do more outreach, and that's what this competition, this is probably a little bit different than the talks because this is going to be more geared. We need people who want to get into data analytics desperately. And so my first project in my nonprofit was this competition to introduce grades 6 through 12 students to the world of data analytics. So it is a middle school and high school competition, and it connects to the NCAA basketball tournament, which gives instant buy-in in quite a few cases. And so what the students, they form teams, and what they have to do is they have to produce an algorithm that would predict the top 10 teams that were most likely to win the NCAA championship. And they pick, the algorithm has to pick those 10 teams, and they have to number those teams in reverse order, 10 through 1. So whichever team their algorithm is picking at 10, that's the team that should hopefully win the championship, because every time they win a game, they're going to earn 10 points in the tournament. 9 slot every time they win a game, 9 points so far, and so on and so forth. This was the second year I ran the competition. Believe it or not, the first year I did not take into account Cinderella teams. I was kicking myself through the whole tournament because Loyola Chicago, the Cinderella team, made it all the way to the Final Four. And actually, one algorithm picked Loyola Chicago, though it wasn't doing very well because the mathematics and logic behind it weren't correct. But I realized that, okay, I got to add that in. So there is a Cinderella bonus system, and any team who's seeded 9 through 16 is a Cinderella team. So every time they would win a game in the tournament, if let's say they're in the 3 slot, they'll win 3 points for the win, but they'll get a bonus 5 points for that win because they've been designated a Cinderella team. The key is the algorithm must be turned in before the tournament field's even announced. So how do the students create their algorithms? Well, now we're going into, I guess I didn't update that slide, but for the 2020 competition, we'll have tournament results for 2013 through 2019. So there's 68 teams that qualify. All the information there is in an Excel spreadsheet. So if you click on the 2016 tournament, there's going to be all 68 teams. There's a total of 34 different data values on those teams. Now, some of them is related to the tournament. For instance, seed, which region they were in, what conference, stuff like that. But then the rest are statistics that they accumulated over that season. One of the columns is going to tell the students how many games they won in the tournament. See, the idea is they create algorithms, and then they can go back to, what, these 6 tournaments now, and they can test to see how those algorithms would have performed if they would have turned that algorithm in for the year 2016. And hopefully by working hard and trying things, eventually they'll hone into something that consistently scores well, and that's the algorithm that they would submit in the 2020 tournament. Actually, this is a slide that some of the information comes when I go out and promote the competition. So they got 68 objects, and you're choosing 10 with order and port, and there's how many different ways that can be done. So there's a lot of different possibilities there. Naturally, of course, you don't want to have an algorithm that's picking a lot of teams that are seeded 16 and 12, and so a lot of them you're not hoping will happen, but that's a total number of ways that can be done. So the teachers are the sponsors of these teams, and one thing that I'm hoping eventually this will happen is this competition will actually become part of the curriculum. So the teachers are actually allowed to teach their students anything that could help them build their algorithms in the class. They just can't actually build the algorithm for them. So they're allowed to do anything like that. Everything's done electronically, and it's done on the honor system. I'm sitting here running this nonprofit. And the first year I was only all by myself. So the teachers are going to have a lot of help from them. And what do I mean by the honor system? So yeah, they turn these algorithms in before the tournament field's announced. Once the field's announced, we have to put that same spreadsheet together for that tournament because eventually those algorithms have to be applied to that spreadsheet. Now, I could do that myself, but I don't have enough time. So talk to the teachers. How about having the students evaluate their own algorithms? And then they exchange them and do a checking like that, or the teachers can check, and actually all the teachers like that. So literally, the only thing that happens eventually is the teachers are going to turn into me the algorithm that literally lists their 10 teams. And then I had some high school students, My nonprofit's, the slogan is a student-driven think tank for the state of Iowa, so I want students doing as much stuff as possible, so I had a team of high school students that actually built a scoring platform for me. Now, I was entering all those teams, but that was all the work that I would do, and then send out scoring updates during the competition. When I'd send out these updates, I'd send out updates to the teachers, and then they let their students know how they do. I think I'd give 2 or 3 updates during the competition so they know where they stand against all the other teams out there that are participating. Typically, they can score their algorithms themselves during the tournament and compare with their classmates, so they know how they're doing there, but naturally they want to know how they're doing in the big scheme of things. Okay, so this is participation statistics. So the first year I ran this would have been the 2018 NCAA tournament. I had a total of 101 algorithms that were submitted. So there was actually 101 teams out there that were participating, a total of 277 students. All the teams there were grades 10 through 12, except I did have a mother that somehow found out about the competition. I set it up so anybody can be the sponsor. And so we had a team of gifted 5th graders that actually participated in the competition, and they actually really enjoyed it. When we go into the second year, word got out. So we had to jump from 277 students to 778 students participating. 277 algorithms were submitted, and my hope was that I could get the competition down into the middle school. So I ended up actually having 2 separate competitions with grades 7 through 9 and 10 through 12. There was actually 277 students that participated in the grade 7 through 9 competition. What's that, 500 students or so in the grades 10 through 12. The neat thing is, in both years, the approximate male to female ratio was 55% to 45%. Part of that was automatic because a lot of teachers actually had their entire class in the competition. Some of them were making it as a project, so they came up with scoring rubrics to grade. So part of that is, if the class has got that many female students in it, they had to do it. So again, the question is, hopefully that is going to be something that attracts them into data analytics. If in conversations with the teachers, and Vicki can talk about this more later when we get to the actual survey statistics, they think it does help. Okay, some example algorithms, and actually there's three poster boards up here that you can see them. Most of the algorithms submitted are on the more simple to complex, just linear regression models. And what they were doing was coming up with a rating. So they take these maybe 2 or 3 different statistics, create some linear model on those 3 or 4 statistics, and then the number that they would kick out would be a rating for the teams, which maybe they're going to take that and then order it from largest to smallest or smallest to largest, depending upon if there's a positive or negative correlation. Positive or negative correlation in terms of number of wins. And it's a simple algorithm, and they do a lot of testing, and they get some of those simple algorithms that actually would perform extremely well in the competition. There would be, we always ended up both years with a few nonlinear type algorithms. Same thing though, they're producing a rating. I think we have one of those here too. And then you get some students that are a little bit more advanced. So for instance, the first year, I remember I went out and presented, and when the teacher heard that they could actually teach their students anything, right away he looked at me and goes, "Hey, I know some R. Can I teach my students R's to build their algorithm?" I said, "That's what the competition is about." So literally at that school, there was 2 or 3 teams that submitted algorithms where they came up with a linear regression model using R, where they're actually predicting the number of games won in the tournament. And one of those algorithms won the competition that first year. And I think the other one, actually, there was 2 of them. I think the other one maybe finished 4th or 5th. But that's the whole idea behind it. There is one algorithm here that you'll see where the students actually use a neural networks type model, machine learning. That's the middle poster there. You can take a look at that. So you get varying things, but the cool part about it, and it's all about trying to spark interest. I'm trying to do a lot of this stuff with the rural school districts in Iowa. They don't have as many resources, and the kids don't get those kind of experiences. And there were a lot of kids from the rural districts that their algorithms were outperforming the students from the big school districts, and that was a big deal for those kids.
The second year, the success from the first year, the whole idea is this is supposed to be, okay, we're going to get students, and there's going to be a spark in interest, and I'm also trying to build a new model for admissions, college admissions. This is eventually we're going to be sending these kids to get interested in the data analytics programs. And Drake University in Des Moines had just, I think their program is 3 or 4 years old. They got word about my competition, and next thing you know, they're interested. So they gave me a modest sponsorship, and most of that money was actually used to host a conference after the competition, and that's when these poster boards were displayed. And so the NCAA championship game was on a Monday, and we actually had that conference that following Friday. So if you actually come over here and look, you're going to see where you're going to be wondering why these scores were actually put in with a marker. It's because they had already built these posters, and they have to wait for the championship game, and then the conference is on Saturday. So they didn't have enough time to actually, I guess they didn't have enough time. I think they actually already had the posters made, and then they just took the marker and put those scores in there. But the conference was more about focusing on careers, and it was fortunate, I can't remember what year it was, but Drake University, they're usually kind of the lower tier of the Missouri Valley Conference in basketball. They had one season where they had this unbelievable shooting guard. They won the Missouri Valley Conference tournament and qualified for the NCAA basketball tournament. Now that individual, Adam Enemaker, has gone on in data analytics and works for the largest insurance company in Des Moines, Principal Financial Group. So he was a plenary speaker. That guy, he could go on the public speaking tour. So he was perfect to talk to these kids about data analytics. They also had a career panel that had 5 reps, and I managed to get 150 students and teachers, students and teachers combined to attend, and that really opened the eyes of Drake, because it's now like, okay, these kids hopefully can start getting these kids to come to the Drake Analytics program, because they also use that conference to showcase their program. That's the guy on the left, don't ignore him. That's Adam Enemaker. So these pictures were taken from the conference. There's your career panel, the next slide. So these are the names of the people that were on the career panel, the companies they work for. They tried to vary that, and the thing for Drake was, when they started that analytics program, there was companies in Des Moines that gave them some money to get that program started up, and each one, I believe each one of these speakers was a rep from one of the companies that had donated money to get that program started. They had actually a professor at Drake, an informatics pharmacist, that they do a lot of data analytics stuff, so he was on that career panel as well. I took this picture out because so this individual right here was a former student of mine at Simpson who went out and taught mathematics, and he was at one of these traditional rural school districts where virtually all the kids are would be first-generation college students, and it's not the greatest learning environment. They entered that first year, and they ended up winning the small school championship, and I'll talk about what that is. And that was a game changer for that district. They actually outscored, there's a private school in Des Moines, a Catholic school, Dowling. They're huge in sports, everybody knows them, everybody's jealous of them. These kids, their winning teams submitted an algorithm that outscored all the Dowling teams. That was a huge deal in that district, and they all came. I guess now I'm like a celebrity, apparently, at that school. And I only live like about 15 miles from the school, so I spend a lot of time going over there. But the principal is a younger principal. He's wanting to change the culture, and he's like, what you're doing here is changing the culture for learning in this district. So that was a picture. They brought all their kids to the conference. If you are interested in more information, so the ICTM, that's the Iowa Council for Teacher of Mathematics. Myself published a paper in that journal, 2017-18 Winter Journal. This is the teacher, and that actually was Dowling, the first year that had his students use some R. And he put it's like a 2 or 3 page article, and he's just talking all about what he saw was coming from his students. He was teaching AP statistics at the time. He was able to get through more material than he had ever got before, because he was able to convince the students, if we can learn this topic in class, you can use that to produce better algorithms. He said it motivates the kids to learn, because it's a competition, and they want to really do well in the competition. Mine was more big picture stuff related to my nonprofit, because this competition would be like a first step in what I want to do, and there would be the link if you want, it's online if you want to see that. Then these are more pictures. This is a picture of all the attendees. I think that was when Adam was speaking to the whole group. I wanted to show this picture because I came up with this idea. Out in the rural school districts, especially the small ones, it's all about athletics. It's all about athletics. You're trying to change that culture. So I came up with the idea of having a small school, large school championship. It's a traveling trophy. And I do it by district enrollment numbers. I think 500 and below, you're a small school. Anything above that, you're a large school. And I basically take the top 3 scores from teams from that school, and I'll average them. And that's how I determine the top one's going to be your champion, whether it's small or large school. And again, the first year for small school, I-35, that really tiny small school district close to me, they won the small school championship. That first year, Dowling won the championship. The second year, turned around, small school champion was Central Line, which was way up in northwest Iowa. That was a heck of a trip. Me and Vicki went up there. Because in both, we had 3 cases when they literally had pep assemblies to present these awards. Central Line, they had 15 minutes, the entire school was there. The gym was full, and these kids were giving them the trophy. They were up there showing off. And then the one thing I was able to do the second year, and there'll be pictures later that Vicki will show you, got Drake to buy, well, it says Drake Analytics Program, but the top scoring team for each school got t-shirts as well as the sponsoring teacher. I think this is going to be where you take over, Vicki. Oh, this is really quick. You might want to check out the Walkie Apex program, because this is going to be the wave of the future for high school education. That's where I got the team of students that built my scoring platform. And then I had a couple of students from Simpson College. They were the ones that were putting those spreadsheets together. The first year they put the spreadsheets together. Now they had to do it for 3 or 4 tournaments. It took them a week. By the time they got through and figured out all the tricks, they were able to, when that tournament field was announced on that Sunday night, Selection Sunday, they could put that spreadsheet together for me in 2 hours. And then I could get that out to the teachers on Monday, so they could have their kids start evaluating the way to do. And then I have a professor at Coe College, that's up in northwest Iowa. She's helping promote the competition there. I should probably have one for Vicki, but Vicki's on the east side of the state, and she's helping promote the competition there, and now it's Vicki's turn.
Okay, a couple of things I just want to mention about the conference. It wasn't required that the kids had to make a poster, and a lot of the teams that were in it for the first year, their posters were a little bit more basic. This team happened to be one of the teams that had been in it for 3 years, but they had them up before the competition or before the conference started. So I was going around and looking at the posters and asking kids questions. And this particular one, they were using Z-scores, and I said, "Wow, you guys must be in AP statistics. If you're using your Z-scores and stuff, tell me about that." And they said, "Well, no, we're not in AP statistics, or we're not." But it was something that our teacher said might be something we'd like to learn about. So he introduced Z-scores along with other statistical topics, even though they weren't taking statistics at the time. But this particular school would be the closest thing that Iowa has to a charter school, because it takes in kids from all over the Des Moines area. And so it's a little bit different than the school that I taught at. I actually, Rick and I both went to small rural schools in Iowa, and the school that I was teaching at, North Cedar, was actually the high school that I went to. So I ended up teaching in the same room that I was taught math. And we had like 200 students on the average in our high school. When we we had a math club, and like about 25% of our student body was involved in the math club, and it included females and males. So those were the students that would get involved in something like this. But getting back to this, after the competition was over, we gave a survey to all the teachers that had participated, and these were some of the things that they mentioned as challenges. the number one challenge was finding time to devote to working on the competition. And the first year that Rick hosted or did the competition, I was actually teaching middle school that year. And he came out and presented to my students. And we were going to try to use lunchtime, or their time after lunch, to work on the competition. Well, that's also their time that they can go in and have open gym. So needless to say, there wasn't a whole bunch of kids that were jumping at the chance to do the competition, since that was their only really free time of the day. So I only had a few students that actually participated that year, but it gave me a chance to kind of see what was going on with the competition. At that end of that school year, I retired, and so then I went into helping him promote this. But time is, as a high school teacher, time is always a factor. You need like 30 hours in every day, because you're at school like 24 of those hours. But the other thing was, especially for the teachers that this was their first year, and they had the middle school kids, they had a lot of trouble with, trying to come up with the algorithms, because they're still just doing kind of pretty basic algebra. So coming up with an equation was a pretty challenging thing for them. So that was kind of the lack of experience, and getting kids to persevere. In math, or in school in general, especially today, kids give up really easily. And so trying to get them to stick with something, to come up with, their model or whatever, was a really big thing. And the biggest thing was the lack of statistical and data analytics. The Common Core now says you are supposed to have statistics in your high school curriculum. It actually just came into play, I believe in 2016 is when you had to actually have that in place. Most curriculums, especially in the rural schools, do not include statistics. We actually had an AP Stats class because I pushed to get an AP Stats class. I have 4 daughters, and my oldest is in social work, and my husband is calling me, oh jeez. And my second daughter is a nurse practitioner. My third daughter actually started off as a math major and did not have a real good experience, and ended up changing to women's studies major. But she's now in Melbourne, Australia, and is a diversity consultant. And then my youngest daughter actually did go into teaching. But all 4 of them had to take statistics in college. And my oldest daughter was really good at math, and I told her, even though she was majoring in psychology as an undergrad, she was going to take calculus her freshman year, because she might change her mind. So the other math teacher, there's only 2 math teachers in our school. He taught the AP Calc, so he did not want the AP Stats. He wanted all the kids to take AP Calc. And in fact, the second year we had the AP Stats, a lot of the kids dropped out of AP Calc to take AP Stats, so this caused a little bit of conflict. But the whole idea is we need to have more statistics in the high school. Just curious, when you raise your hand if you took statistics in high school. Okay, so this is with data analytics just becoming a new career option and a new program in colleges. It's going to be something that we need colleges to help encourage high schools to bring those statistics programs into their curriculum. And then the last thing was lack of experience working with spreadsheets. They got all the data, as Rick had mentioned, on an Excel spreadsheet, and a lot of the kids hadn't had a lot of experience. We have quite a few schools in Iowa that actually are one-to-one, so all the kids have computers. So it was something they picked up fairly easily, but that's one of the things that we want to look at changing for this next year. Some positive results, these are coming from the teachers. Unmotivated students became motivated for the first time. And I had a student that never was on task because he was always solving the problems of the world when I wanted him to be solving something in class. And he was one of those kind of unmotivated students that this was, wow, this was something he was very interested in. Promoting teamwork and communication related to mathematics. This is probably my #1 thing. Ever since I started teaching mathematics back in 1985, dating myself here, in 1990 I actually went to a class that was on using cooperative learning in a mathematics classroom, and I started using it, and the discourse and the problem solving that went on in my classroom was amazing. I felt like I was always trying to convince somebody that I did know what I was doing, since I was kind of going against the rest of the teaching staff. How much time? What? A couple minutes is all? Oh my gosh. Okay, so the other thing, it increased student and parent engagement. And the competitive thing was also a big deal. But competition and the conference experience really brought in the career options, and that actually came with the conference too, that they gave a chance to talk about different career options. Some positive comments that came from the surveys, that teachers said improving communication, time management is a big deal, teamwork skills and engagement, seeing their algorithm perform. The kids really liked the feedback after the first round of the competition when they found out, you know, which teams they are still in the tournament and stuff. And the real world problem was also a big thing. And then hearing from the professionals when we had the conference. I think I'm gonna skip this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. There was a high school teacher from Keokuk, Iowa, and she actually had taught at the prison in Fort Madison for a couple years, but she was Keokuk's very fortunate that she decided to go back into education, and she's actually had almost 100 students, didn't she, in the competition?
It was close to 100 students.
All right, but she wrote up a application or lesson plan for the Rosenthal Prize of Innovation, and she's actually a finalist, and it's worldwide, and she used the competition as part of that lesson plan. And so we're real interested to see how she ends up doing with that. But the bottom website talks a little bit about the Rosenthal Prize. Oops. These are just some pictures with the kids that were presenting their topics, and they stood by the things during lunchtime and before so they could explain their algorithms. And this is just kind of another one, which if you get a chance after it's over, if you want to come and take a look at these. Okay, this team was the Central Lion team that won the small school.
They won the small school.
Yeah,
They were the small school champion, and then the kids with the t-shirts were the top scorers. They had top scores for both the grades 9 through 12, 10 through 12, and then top score for 9 through 12.
And we went up and presented the trophy to them and the t-shirts, and they had an all-school assembly along with Keokuk did too, which was a really big deal because in small schools, if you're not an athlete, you don't get too much recognition. And these kids, some of them on the left side, you can tell they're junior high kids. So it was a really big deal. In fact, some of them were a little bit embarrassed to be recognized because they're not used to being recognized. But I think it was a really major thing to try to get them the same recognition that an athlete would get. And this was their coaches, and the lady there is Valerie Zonfeld that is with Dork College. But here's some of Rick's information, and we will be presenting at the Iowa Math Conference in a couple weeks too, and we'll give out more of the data that we've accumulated, but I think the growth from year 1 to year 2 was tremendous. And we're actually hoping this year, along with going out and promoting the competition, that offer going out and actually teaching some statistics things to, in the classroom. Since, like I said, you know, as a high school math teacher, your curriculum is a mile wide, and you gotta try to squeeze all that into 180 days. And so it's hard when you're teaching algebra and geometry to try to rationalize where you're gonna take something out and put in some kind of statistics. So I'm hoping that maybe we can, you know, like at the end of a semester after their test or something, maybe have a day or so that we can go in and do some, you know, basic statistics, especially in the schools that don't already have some kind of statistics program. So.
Yeah, really what I'm hoping is since this is gonna be a new admissions model at Drake University, we're looking for funding to run some kind of a data science boot camp during the summer for those students that really get into it, because that's, again, getting them on the Drake campus, get them connected to the universities and goals behind that. So, if you have any, I know we went a little over time. If you have any questions, we're gonna be around, you can come ask us, but thanks for your